Hamas didn't even try to hide what they did. They made
Okay,
no
show it.
secret of their delight, their joy, their pride in what they were doing. Some of them rang family members back in Gaza to boast about what they'd just done, to old women, to children. And I'm just curious why you can't find yourself able to condemn this.
In the day and age, Piers, in the day and age when everyone has cameras and there are cameras all over the place, show us the evidence. Show us the evidence. Especially in Israel, which is a society which has cameras all over the place. But you don't have footage of any beheadings and you don't have any footage of any rape. I wonder why.
Well, there were bodies found who had been beheaded. That is a fact.
So, okay, show them these bodies that have been beheaded. Show them on your show. Show those pictures.
How many people do you think were killed that day?
I think roughly 1,100, between 1,100 and 1,200. Many of them were soldiers.
So you accept there was a mass slaughter. Does that constitute genocide to you? Is that an attempt at genocide?
No, it's like you saying that the French resistance, which was operating against the Nazis, and they go and carry out an operation, and during that operation, some children are sadly killed. So you say, oh, so the whole French resistance is illegitimate, and the Nazis' occupation is legitimate. That's nonsense. If, as I said very clearly, wherever an innocent person is killed, that I condemn, everyone condemns, and I wish you would condemn, because a genocide is taking place. And you are putting forward claims without the justification to make them, without the evidence to make them. I would refer you again to those websites and those reporters and journalists who've proven that the claims were inaccurate, to say the least, and dishonest, most probably. Yeah.
And let me take you back to what Israel said they committed the bombing in Damascus for, was because they discovered that the building was diplomatic in name only and being used as an Iranian military and intelligence base, hence the presence of all these generals, two of whom were killed, along with all the others there. So if it was being used as a military base, and they were training Hezbollah, which is what they believed they were doing, then it was a legitimate target, wasn't it?
Well, of course, since you support the Israeli narrative and you are a friend of the people who are carrying out this Holocaust, this ongoing Holocaust, and you don't care about the people.
I don't support any narrative. I'm just asking you whether if it was being used as a military base, was it a legitimate target if they're training Hezbollah to attack Israel?
You have a rather one of the most extreme narratives, and I think you're doing a disservice to truth by
actually I don't at all. I've been very critical of Israel, but I don't believe whenever I interview people who can't find it in themselves to actually say what Hamas did on October the 7th, I always find it slightly incredulous then, whatever else they say, because we all saw what happened with our own eyes.
People are not intimidated by you. That's the problem. You can intimidate some of your own people, but you can't intimidate us.
I don't want to intimidate anybody. I want to get to the I want to find out. I'm just fascinated. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, Professor, I'm not trying to be timid.
That is a diplomatic
No, you don't ask the questions.
Just like the
I ask the questions.
No, I'm answering your question. That was a diplomatic building. You know quite well that the Israelis had no right to touch it. They committed a crime, and the Iranian retaliation was an act of self-defense. And your own foreign minister humiliated himself on Sky News, which is an outlet that is sympathetic to the regime, when he said, well, if one of our diplomatic buildings were struck, how would the response be? So don't be silly. The Israeli regime, they're always lying, just like the Al-Shifa hospital. They're full of underground tunnels. Where were the tunnels? And then at the beginning, when they struck the Al-Hili hospital and killed hundreds of people, they said, no, it was the resistance, and the Western intelligence agencies said the same thing. And then we saw them hit hospital after hospital after hospital after hospital. So you put your faith in the narrative of these child killers who bomb hospitals and destroy the very basis of humanity, the very basic needs for ordinary people in Gaza. Come on.
And yet
let me give you a word of advice. Your media outlets, regardless of whether Russia or Ukraine is good or bad, That is another issue. Your media outlets in the West have been misleading the people for 2 years now, saying Ukraine is winning, Ukraine is winning. Suddenly, everyone is saying Ukraine is falling apart. Dishonest narratives and reporting dishonestly to your own people ultimately hurt the people of England and Europe and the United States. And your endless wars based upon this nonsense and this misinformation lead to huge waves of refugees. And then the people of Europe feel overwhelmed by these refugees that you yourself brought upon yourself.